We're back with Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. Always thrilled to have our next guest. Does an excellent job covering the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can follow him on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Our guy, Keith Pompey. What's happening, Keith?
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
What's going on, man?
Keith, we're good, man. We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to figure out.
No, I ain't trying to figure it out no more. No, I'm not. I'm not.
To Boston.
I'm gonna tell you the truth, man.
Done.
No, I'm not. No.
Lose to Miami. Go to Miami without Embiid. Win. Lose to Dallas when you can't stop me, and then win Saturday without Tobias, without PJ Tucker. Like, was that not the most Sixer week we've ever seen, Keith? This past week.
I mean, it was, and it's funny because how the people go up like, oh, they stink, and then like, oh, they're great. It's like from game to game. So the way things are happening, it looks like they may lose tonight, right?
That's true.
Right. Yeah. Keith, I turned around and I told these guys, I said, you guys, look, you can bank on this. They're going to win the next 3 games. Not because there's a rhyme or reason around it, but that's just what they do. And what do? Lose, win, and they're about to lose again just because I said they were going to win. No rhyme or reason why. They could be the better team, and they'll stink the whole place up. Then there's no way they should be able to compete with a Milwaukee team that shoots the way they shoot, and they end up winning.
Yeah.
What harder am I going to get? You know what I'm saying? What harder am I going to get? I'm going to get the 30-point Harden or the 20-point Harden. We don't need people, and then we we sit people down, and they go out and win it for the Gipper. Like, what is this play? What's going on, man? You tell me.
I mean, it's just the Sixers way. I mean, it's been this way since they stopped tanking. I mean, even Brett Brown, I mean, you look at it. I mean, the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the 76ers, like at least heading into the All-Star break, right? They had the winningest record of teams heading into the All-Star break in each of the last 4 years. Or let me take that back. They're one of a few teams that have over a 60% percentage. Now, when you look at the last couple of years of the regular season, like the Sixers have had the best record over the last couple of years in the regular season combined. But the problem with all that is all great, but they keep losing in the second round. So I think that what we do is a lot of people, they get caught up in these regular season games and they get so hyped up. And then when they lose, it's like a heart attack. But the problem is one of those things they got to show us what they can do in the playoffs, because all this stuff is good, but beating Milwaukee doesn't mean anything if you can't get out of the second round this year.
As crazy as this season has been, the one constant with this team that we see more evident, especially over the past week, is why in the world can this team not defend the perimeter better than they do? I don't understand it. You look at Milwaukee and Boston, they have 2 and 3 men out on the perimeter, and they dare you. They dare you to try to go inside on them. This team cannot defend the perimeter to save their lives. I just can't figure. And they're supposed to be a good defensive team. I don't get it.
I think a lot of it has to do with losing Matisse Thybulle. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because there was a point where when they get in that zone defense, right, against the perimeter, and you had Matisse and you had DeAnthony Melton, and then you had Joel like anchoring things, so to speak. But I think that with Matisse being there, it kind of erased some of the deficiencies that other guys had.
I hadn't thought about that.
You take him out of the mix, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, they went back to looking like the team who struggled in the beginning of the season before Doc Rivers started playing them in the perimeter. So I think that's a huge loss for them. Now, again, I'm not taking anything against the guy that they brought in, Jalen McDaniels. I think he's playing well. But I think for perimeter defense, it's kind of like losing Matisse is something that is hurting them right now.
Yeah, Keith. And I think the other challenge that Doc has is with Maxey and Harden starting, you don't defend well at the guard spot. And then Melton, much better defender, but man, he struggles offensively and especially lately. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't to some degree.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And also he's been struggling on the defensive end too against when, he at one point he was leading the league, second in the league in steals. But then he started going up against some elite guards night in and night out, and he struggled. And you're right, like shooting the ball. And the one thing to knock on Melton has always been this time of year in the playoffs, he struggles. I don't know if it's like as long as the 82 game season and the postseason, but that has always been a knock. And part of the reason why Memphis wanted to trade him is because he struggles this time of the year and he struggles in the playoffs as far as like making shots and everything like that.
Hey, Keith, is it safe to say, can we stop this? Is Maxey better off the bench, or is he in his role off the bench, or as a starter? I look at his last 3 games, 27, 29, 26 points, 38, 35, 41 minutes. He's shooting a minimum 57%. He shot 66.7% on the floor against Milwaukee. I think you need that Energizer bunny back in that starting lineup. You cover the team more than I do, so I'm just going on your expertise.
You know what? I'm one of those guys, and I think that he is a starter in this league. But I also wrote that I felt like it was better bringing him off the bench. And the reason why I say that is because, when we looked at that Dallas Mavericks game and we saw how these guys were just abusing him and Harden, I feel like in the playoffs, that's going to be the ingredient for teams to beat him. Again, offensively, he gets a lot of buckets. He gets a lot of points. But I also feel like they need someone in that lineup, or they need, even if you keep them in there, I think you need somebody in there who can guard the perimeter, because that's what's going to kill them. Now, again, it's one of those things. It's not a knock against him. But right now you're not getting that defense from DeAnthony Melton that you would have liked. So I guess you figure like, well, look, if I'm a die on a sword, I'm gonna die on a sword. I'm gonna go down with it. So he's in there, but I don't think that, and I hope I'm not hating people, but I just don't think that backcourt of those two, without having somebody else in there to help them out, is going to be able to sustain the Boston Celtics, all these other guys. They're just going to rain threes and they're going to attack them left and right in the playoffs.
So I don't quite understand it, because I'm a simple basketball dude. I don't know all the the NBA dynamics and everything. But if you're not a good perimeter defender, that means you're not out there on the perimeter. That means you're kind of towards the basket. So why the hell can't we rebound in? If we're not out defending outside, that means we're inside, and we're not defending inside. Why aren't we rebounding? We're long, we're big. Tobias Harris, Embiid. We have guys with a little, length on us, and we're not. To me, rebounders is just want to, heart. Am I wrong to say that? So why can't we rebound? I don't know. I mean, tell me.
Yeah, you're right. It's want to, is heart, but I also think it's a little bit more complicated too. Because if you notice something, when you look at their defense, because they have these two guys who aren't really good perimeter defenders, what they try to do is they try to do a lot of switching, right? So what's happening is you got the bigs rolling up, like, running out and trying.
Yeah. They do that a lot, yes.
Trying to get their hands up on shooters and things like that. And it always looks like they're a step too slow, right? Yep. So maybe you might say, forget that. Let's just let them shoot it and you get the board. But I think that has something to do with it. But you are right. A lot of it does have to do with their want to, because there was one game where, let's face it, Joel Embiid was a beast on the boards, and he showed us stuff that we don't see all the time. I mean, his shot wasn't falling in that one particular game, and then all of a sudden he was like, forget that. I believe it was against Memphis. He was like, forget that. He says, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make a killing on the boards. The problem is they don't bring that all the time. A lot of them, they just don't. And I know today's NBA is all about getting back on D, stopping the transition, but it just seems like they're struggling in that category, and it would benefit them to get in the rebounds.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Joel. Like, by nature of being 7'2", whatever, he gets some rebounds. He's not a technician, Keith. I mean, he never blocks out, rarely ever. And it's just by circumstance it sort of comes. He had 6 the other night. As great as he was and Harden was, I think he had 6 rebounds against Milwaukee. Like, That can't happen, man. He's got to be in double digits. So he's got to take some responsibility here too. But let's talk about Harden. Remarkable game, right? And has had a damn good year for all the people who want to kind of take shots at him. And I know everybody hears the Houston stuff and you're like, what? Why is that even a possibility? But what do you think ends up happening here with him ultimately? Is he back? He can opt out of this deal, at the end of this season.
I think, he can opt out of this deal. If I'm the 76ers, and I know money could be an issue, but if I'm the 76ers, I'm doing whatever I can to keep him. The thing is, now, who knows? I guess the years could be the holdup. How many seasons do you want to give him? But I feel like, right now, a lot of people are looking at what Brooklyn is doing with Ben Simmons and saying, oh, the Sixers won the trade. Oh, yeah, they're great. If Harden leaves, they won the trade. Nah, they got Harden. It was championship or bust. And if Harden leaves, and especially if this team goes out in the second round, then, you lost the trade too. I mean, not lost it, but there was no winner. There wasn't a winner. So I feel like if I'm the 76ers, I got to keep this thing intact. I mean, I do. I have to keep Harden and I have to keep, Embiid, because I feel like if Harden leaves and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you hear like Tobias Harris will be in the final year of his deal. I'm afraid that Embiid will probably say, look, I got to go too, depending on who they bring in. And then all of a sudden we're not the process, but we're going through another rebuilding phase in Philadelphia. So I think you need to keep Harden because you gave up so much for him.
Keith, let's go back to Embiid for just a moment. And I brought this up earlier in the show. And you tell me, because you have inside track, is there more to this foot thing than the eye is seeing? Because there was one play in particular against the Bucks. Brook Lopez blocks his shot. And they're both the same size, about the same weight, 7-footers, 270, 80 pounds. Lopez lumbering down the court. He pulls up and hits a three from the top of the key. Joel's still jogging down the floor. I don't even think he was at half court when Lopez launched the three. Is there more to him in terms of maybe just physical stamina, worn out, just, foot issue? How do you perceive it?
Now, I do think that the foot is bothering him more so than he will tell us, and they're admitting to it, because if you notice, there are times once or twice a game where all of a sudden he'll come down and then you'll see him grimace and then he'll rub it or something like that. And he acts like, he'll act like, everything is okay later. Mm-hmm. But that one thing is, I think some plays is like effort too, right? I mean, I hate to say it. It's been since Joel's been, this is Joel's 8th season actually playing. And how many games have we seen where we say, hey, what happened? How come he didn't get back on D? You know what I mean? So I as much as, and here's something else, I will say this about it. If you pay attention, Brook Lopez has been doing that to him for years.
True.
Right.
You know what I mean? For years. It's always, you see Joel Embiid underneath the basket looking around, and then all of a sudden Brook catches the ball in a corner three or whatever. So, I think, yes, his foot is bothering him, but on some of those plays, he has to up the effort. I mean, if we want to be real.
So go ahead, Rob.
No, Barry, you go.
I'm looking at this team, and I see the ability to be very, very good, but then I look at the rest of the Eves, and they're better. So we keep saying, all right, make it out of the second round, when at this point I don't think it's very feasible, because everybody else got better with their perimeter shooting and we didn't. So how are we going to make it to the third round of the playoffs when we didn't improve what we haven't been improved in the past 4 or 5 years, and that's outside shooting?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, like when you look at the buyout market, or you look at the trade deadline, and you saw what the 76ers did. They went out there and they got Jalen McDaniels, and they went out there and got Dwayne Dedmon. But then you look at Boston, it's kind of like they went out there and let's granted Mike Muscala, you're going to say to yourself, Mike Muscala isn't the missing piece to a championship. But when you have a team with a bunch of athletic guys and bruisers and this and that, then you have a Mike Muscala who could come in there and, like you say, be someone who can stretch the floor. Not going to play a lot of minutes, but he's going to stretch the floor. you look at what the Milwaukee Bucks did. I mean, the latest pickup was the guy Goran Dragic, right?
Yeah.
So he's a point guard that's going to help him out. You know, Jay Crowder is coming off the bench, but he's a starter level player in this league. I mean, I looked at that team the last time when the Bucks played the Sixers. People don't realize this. They have 3 7-footers on their team, and then Bobby Portis, who's their sixth man, is 6'11", and then they go 6'9". So they have everything. And when you look at the Sixers, let's get back to them. You look at them. You know, Dwayne Dedmon has been active for 2 games and hasn't played yet, right? So, and then you look at McDaniels, a complimentary piece, but at the same time, he doesn't move the needle in regards to those other teams we just mentioned. So, you know, I look at it like, yeah, they made additions, but their additions do not compare to the other teams, like how they got guys who fit in perfectly for them. And I just don't see it. I mean, we look at Toronto. Toronto went out there and got Will Barton, right? The Phoenix Suns picked up Terrence Ross. I mean, those are 2 guys who would have helped the 76ers out a lot from that category you're talking about. You know, getting
stretch 5, I mean stretch 4, stretch 3.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't have that. They did not get that. But you got guys at the end of the bench like Furkan Korkmaz, who is not going to play. You have Jaden Springer still down in the G League, while these other teams brought in these veteran players who are in their rotation right now playing.
Keith, any of the teams behind them legitimately worry you? Cleveland, the Knicks, all of a sudden, you know, and they do it last night in Boston without Brunson. They've won 9 of 10, 9 in a row. You know, the Nets, it's a nice story for what Mikal Bridges is doing, but I'm not real fearful of them. You're adding Quinn Snyder to the Hawks. Does anybody scare you behind them?
I mean, I want to say Cleveland and the Knicks. Now, the thing about the Nets that I will say about it, it's one of those nice stories, and everybody keeps talking about it, and we keep waiting for them to fall off the cliff. But you also got to pay attention to them just in case they don't fall off the cliff. Now, again, I'm with you. I'm not to that stage yet. You know what I mean? To say they're going to do anything, but I also think that when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're a young team, and we know if everything goes right, Joel Embiid should just dominate and be able to get 4 wins out of that series, right? Because of his domination. But the thing is, if you notice, the 76ers struggle a lot against young athletic guards, especially good young athletic guards. That's when Maxi's speed becomes neutralized. That's when these guys have swag and stuff like that. So if I'm the Sixers, I do not like that match. Now, again, I think they can win that one, but I don't like it. There's something about the Knicks right now is just they're that dangerous team. They're just winning. Like, you know, I'm watching these games and you think like, okay, there's no way they're going to win this thing. And voila, they come out there and they steal another one. So both of those teams really, if I'm the Sixers, I'm a little concerned a little bit because, you know, again, as good as James is, we're talking about James is 3.
Yep.
You know, Tobias is in his 30s. PJ Tucker is 37. You know, so they're like older team. They're an older team. And then, you know, let's talk. They just picked up Dwayne Dedmon, 33. Like they have an older team now. And a lot of these teams are young. The pressure is going to be on the Sixers. It's not going to be on those teams. So yeah, those are 2 teams that really concern me: Cleveland and the Knicks.
So I was thinking, you know, we go ahead and just go ahead and, you know, just think about those teams as being, all right, we're more experienced than they are. We're going to win just because of who we are. But it's not like that. They're running all over us right now.
I mean, like, you know, and I keep I keep hate bringing you up, but you played professional sports at a high level, right? And you guys covered professional sports at a high level. You know how there's always that young dude that comes in the locker room or you see and you say to yourself like, man, this guy, come on, man, like, you know, you kind of disrespecting the veteran. You're disrespecting the veteran and you think that he's going to get smacked in the mouth. And that confidence and that youth that guy has, and all of a sudden at the end of the season, people are shaking his hand saying he's going to be the next one. I look at the Knicks and I look at especially Cleveland. They have a lot of these young guys where we look at like, yo, y'all can't come into Philly and play Harden. Like, Harden's like one of the all-time greats. And then next thing you know, these dudes are trying to posterize Harden, trying to get over on like.
That's why he's trying to go to Houston,
huh?
Is that why he's trying to get to Houston?
But I just think that a lot of times we always look at these young cats and say like, nah, the veteran will get them. But nah, Father Time is something different. Is when it's not, when you lose a step and you got these young dudes hungry trying to make a name of themselves playing you, that's a dangerous combination.
So Keith, real quick, you look at it tonight. You got a back-to-back. You play tonight, and then Minnesota. Will we see either Embiid or Harden sit in either of these games? Because I know there's a lot of questions right now with Tobias and PJ playing as well. Where does any of that stuff stand?
I think, well, the one thing is, I would like, here I am going to say it, but I would be shocked if PJ plays. I mean, I know he's listed as questionable, but I was talking to him this afternoon. He was basically saying, it's one of those things. It's like all about feel. This is my back. He's saying, I'm going to give it a go, but if it doesn't feel right, I'm not going to play. But the one thing that really hit me was when he said, they were going to give me some load management days anyway. So maybe this could be a blessing, right? Okay. So when you hear that, it's kind of like, well, does it make sense to play him? Now, when you talk about him not playing and you talk about Tobias being questionable, right? I don't know if you can sit Harden or Embiid in tonight's game. Yeah. Because to me, that's basically one of those, okay, is a scheduled loss. Like, going.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say it.
The fans don't say it.
That's when it becomes a scheduled.
Yeah, that's the favorite term for the fans when they hear that one.
So I think maybe before all this stuff happened, it would have been a great chance to rest one of the two. Right. But I think right about now, if you're really trying to win, they both need to play, and then you just give them the 2 days off in between games and don't practice them on Thursday, but just give them the 2 days off, because I think they got 19 games left in the season, and I think it's a tough, grueling schedule. These are one of the games, especially tonight against Indiana, that they have no excuse for losing. So you need to go out there and get it.
Keith, do you agree or disagree with this? Outside of the big three in the East, Boston, Milwaukee, and the 76ers, and you kept alluding to Cleveland, and rightfully so. I think as we sit here right now, I think the Knicks are the most dangerous team in terms of upsetting the apple cart. And I think they sent a message by beating Boston twice in the span of just 6 days. They took Boston to double overtime and beat them on their own floor last night. And I'm looking at this Knicks team, their rotation, their athleticism, and I think this Knicks team is a team that those in front better start looking over their shoulder at a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, and if you notice, the funny part about this Knicks team, because they got a lot of guys that they don't have like the big names, so to speak, but they had a lot of injuries early on. Like when teams, they were playing the Sixers and other teams, they had key guys out. It wasn't Brunson, it wasn't Julius Randle, but they had other key guys out to where people were like, oh, they beat the Knicks, they're sorry. But then you're like, but dude, half the squad didn't play. But yeah, I do feel that way. I mean, I do. And I think a lot of it, I know Julius Randle is the all-star, but when you look at their success, a lot of it is what Jalen Brunson, the things he brings here. And then you brought Josh Hart into the realm as well. And he brings that defense. He's a quality player. I think that is a dangerous team right now. Now I do think the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team. But if I'm Boston and I'm the Sixers, I'm like, I don't want to play the Knicks in the first round. I just don't. I mean, they're
kind of like the way I looked at the Celtics last year. The Celtics started out, really, really not playing together. And then towards the end of the season, they just caught fire and became the best team in the East, So kind of like that, man. I just see us staying status quo. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And I thought we just maintained instead of trying to get better.
Yeah. Well, interesting thought there. Keith, listen, man, appreciate you. Thanks for
always,
having all this. And keep up the great work. I tell everybody all the time, man, check out Keith's work at Pompey on Sixers. And of course, Philadelphia Inquirer JAKIB.com, Sixers beat writer. Keith, thanks, man. Enjoy
Appreciate
tonight.
you,
We'll
bro.
talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. Be
All right,
good.
take care. That's Keith Pompey. All right, let's get one in here, guys. We'll come back and we'll be joined by Marcus Hayes. We'll talk about his story of the conflict here. The initial story was Denard Wilson and the Eagles. It was a parting of ways mutually. Marcus is not so fast. So we'll talk about that when we come back. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. We're going to talk right now about Razor Technology. Yes, IT infrastructure management is key. IT infrastructure environments are more complex and heterogeneous than ever before. Consequently, teams struggle to respond to pressing issues with the speed necessary to promote positive business results, and the data that empowers predictive monitoring and automation is left unexploited. Razor Technology addresses this challenge with a holistic approach that connects every part of an organization's technology assets, enabling proactive and secure IT operations without sacrificing the agility that drives innovation. Razor Technology automates monitoring and management to bolster IT teams that are feeling stretched thin, and it improves auditing and reporting procedures so that actionable insights find their way to the leaders that need them most. Save time and money on your IT and cloud services and secure your organization with leading end-to-end infrastructure solutions by calling Razor Technology today at 866-797-3282, 866-797-3282, or visit them online at razor-tech.com. That's razor-tech.com.
Go to get your game